If you're someone who is finally feeling a bit of energetic momentum as we are over a month into the new year, but also maybe you're noticing some things are changing or evolving, maybe in your relationships, your job, or maybe you're ready for a change and you're not sure where to start. Listen, there is an upcoming annular solar eclipse in the sign of Aquarius, and it's all about change. It's all about us entering a new chapter in our lives. And on top of that, for this Aquarius eclipse and new moon, the tone is being set by Saturn. And guess what, y'all? Saturn, just 3 days before this eclipse, will be leaving the sign of Pisces for the last time in 30 years and will be entering the sign of Aries, where it will be for 2.5 years. And this is a slower moving planet, signifying a collective long-term shift for all of us. And so we have this eclipse that's amplifying, spotlighting, really sort of ushering in tangible events tied back to this Saturnian shift. So in this video, we're going to be talking about it. I'll be giving you an all signs horoscope reading. So based off of your zodiac sign, you can better understand the specific area of life you'll likely notice some of these shifts was in and what it means for you. So let's dive in, y'all. Oh, okay. I landed that intro. You guys, I did that intro so many times because there's so many things at play right now. It's not just the eclipse. It's not just Saturn entering Aries. It's also the conjunction and how they tie together. Okay, before we dive in, I also want to mention that I just released an all signs horoscope for Saturn transiting Aries over the next 2.5 years and what it uniquely means for you based off of your sign. That is the first video I've done in a while that's non-lunation focused. So definitely check it out. With that said, hello. It's your girl Alina back for another video. If you haven't already, if you want a newsletter email version of these videos sent over to you directly a few days before any given full moon or new moon, check out the Align newsletter, which is linked in the description. It's on Substack. Let's talk about the nature of solar eclipses. Solar eclipses only ever happen at the same time as new moons. They're essentially amplified versions of new moons. And so all of the overarching themes of a new moon will be at play here, but it's considered more notable and more significant in all of our lives. For actually, fun fact, a lot of world leaders were born under eclipses. This is fun fact, semi-relevant, not fully. The royal family, there's a lot of notable events within the royal family where they actually intentionally schedule marriages and even funerals, including the recent queen, under eclipses. Look into that. They're pretty notable and significant and can usher in very notable events and notable people in a lot of ways. So little fun fact there. Anyway, so eclipses in general, to kind of paint a picture, they're essentially not at this time that's going to be like, oh, on the 17th, the day of the eclipse, something crazy is going to happen. They're more so the signification that around this time, there's something steadily beginning for all of us. And the same analogy that I give for Saturn, a slower moving planet entering the sign of Aries, and any given transit, honestly, it's more so, let's think of the spring equinox. When the spring equinox happens, it's not like the day before it was snowy and cold, and then the very next day we have a bunch of new baby leaves and it's prime springtime, right? It's this signification of a gentle shift of energy from one season of our lives into another. And we can better narrow down how this shift will manifest based off of our rising signs. I'll do an all signs reading, but that's a bit of context there. In general, you will actually have a higher likelihood to see the results of what's just now beginning now in 6 months under the Aquarius full moon. So just a bit of context there. You want to think of eclipses kind of like as turning points, not as these instant results where something is beginning right now, but it's unfolding over weeks and months. Considering that this eclipse is happening at 28 degrees in the fixed air sign of Aquarius, that also gives us a bit more context of what we will likely experience and see on a collective level and interpersonally. So this eclipse, with it being in Aquarius, I'm looking at my notes, is tied to things like our community, our friendships, our networks, how we collaborate and in which ways, long-term hopes and visions for the future, innovation, and how we participate within the collective, right? We are community-based organisms and we live on an inherently synergistic planet where everything is interdependent with one another. And Aquarius is this a very exemplary sign that spotlights that for all of us. Aquarius is also about stepping back emotionally to see more clearly. And it's less about raw feelings and more about perspective. It's really this sign of progression. It's this sign and this eclipse. It's signifying on a collective level a shift in evolution with our communities and how we interface with one another. All of that to say, Aquarius shows where the new chapter begins for us. And wherever in your personal natal chart Aquarius is in, with this eclipse being there, it's showing an area of life where there's a new subtle shift just now beginning for you. Now, like I mentioned before, Saturn is the ruler of Aquarius. So whatever is going on with Saturn around the time of this eclipse, it's going to be magnified. 4 days before this eclipse in Aquarius, Saturn will newly be entering the sign of Aries, signifying a shift over the next 2.5 years when it comes to those Saturnian themes of maturation, stepping up to the plate, and building sustainable things in our lives. So for a bit of context, and again, I dive way deeper into the nature of Saturn, Saturn returns, Saturn transits on a collective and interpersonal level in my previous video where I give an all signs reading for Saturn in Aries. Saturn in Aries, what we can generally expect on a collective level and interpersonally is us being asked to start something new without having full certainty of it. I feel like a really great sort of overarching description of this is when we want to take action and we're like, oh, I want to do this. And then we realize, okay, you can totally do that, but you actually need to do these 5 other things. That way you can do it right and it's sustainable and you actually enjoy whatever it is that you want to do or experience or obtain. On an interpersonal level, that is what we are going to be diving into next. We're going to go ahead and dive into these all signs horoscopes. As many of you already know, I'm a student of Hellenistic astrology, which is a form of traditional astrology. So if I were to look at your chart based off of your rising sign, I would look at it through the whole house system. So based off of, if you are, let's say, in Aries, that tells me that your first house is in the sign of Aries and your 11th house is in the sign of Aquarius, which means that this eclipse is happening in your 11th house. And thus I will be giving you a reading about how this eclipse could manifest within those 11th house areas of life, right? So that's a bit of context there. I always suggest for you to listen to your reading for your rising sign. And for anybody who's newer to this, you can Google rising sign calculator or even natal chart calculator. And all you have to do is put in the date, time, and location of your birth. I personally love the website AstroSeek to find that, but you can use any website. I also like Cafe Astrology is another good one. But all of that to say, listen to your rising sign, but you can also listen to your sun or moon sign, or even if you have a stellium in a specific zodiac sign. I personally, and I've had a lot of comments from other people who have found that that reading has also been pretty notable for them. If you want to listen to your sun sign reading, that will be more so how things might play out as it pertains to your public image and how you interface with the world. Whereas if you want to listen to your moon sign reading, that can pertain more to how you will more emotionally interface with things and how it might show up in more intimate relationships. But with all of that said, let's dive into the all signs horoscope for this Aquarius eclipse, and I will see you at the end for the journal prompts. Hello to my Aries friends. So this Aquarius this Aquarius new moon and solar eclipse will be happening in your 11th house of the collective. So think about the people that you network with, your friendships, and your community spaces. And with this being an Aquarius, new moon, and eclipse, this signifying a new beginning for you, but also it being tied to Saturn shifting signs, this definitely signifies a new chapter for you when it comes to your relationship with your friendships and your networks, and a bit of a spotlight or even a bit more challenges in a good way that challenge you to grow when it comes to how you interface with your community. I think that for some of you, you might have some experiences that spotlight maybe how much you have been maybe almost too much in your own mind and forgetting about not only other people that you could be also pouring into and supporting, but also how when you are in community and when you are in a network and you are participating in certain social dynamics, whether it's through volunteering or your church or with people like your neighbors or your friends and you're active in those spaces, how those things can pour into you as well, and how those things can help to inform who you are and what you love and also what you don't love. And I'm really excited for you, my Aries friends, because I think that over the next 6 months, you will have a lot more clarity around where you stand in those dynamics, for better or worse. And I think that with Saturn at play here, there's going to be a lot more maturing for you when it comes to your responsibility and the part that you play long-term in co-creating sustainable and healthy social dynamics and environments. So I'm really excited for you. And yeah, I think that that's my overarching reading for you. Oh, the last thing I have in my notes is consider letting go of outdated alliances to make space for new aligned support. I think that for some of you, it could be helpful to check out new spaces, new people, new environments that maybe have varying interests, maybe interests that you haven't really poured into as much in the past, and kind of see what happens. Because I think that for many of you, you're going to come out of this very inspired in a lot of ways. So I am rooting for you, and I will see you at the end for the journal prompts. Hello to my Taurus friends. This Aquarius new moon and eclipse is kicking off a 6-month new chapter in evolution as it pertains to your public image, your reputation, and your career. And I think that for many of you guys, you're going to find a lot of clarity and you're going to have new approaches and experiences when it comes to the people that you work with. And you're going to have a lot more understanding around what actually works for you uniquely in these spaces. And yeah, so I think that that'll be very helpful for you. A few days leading up to the day of or following this eclipse, I think that you might have some notable experiences that are tied back to your job or something having to do with your public relations or reputation, maybe even online. But if you do have some type of experience, it could be something that ends up being tied to altering the trajectory of your career or your job or your business, or like the main thing that you are known for or that you offer to the world. So this shift has to do with that. And so if you are looking for a refresh, if you have noticed things have been falling apart or shifting as it pertains to these things, understand that it's a part of a new chapter for you. And it can be really helpful to pause, reflect, and journal on what is your current relationship with your job? What is your current relationship with how you want people to perceive you? And what comes up from that? Like what immediately came up for me is sometimes social anxiety is tied to wanting to control how people perceive you. And what comes to mind also is the movie Inside Out Part 2 and the power of self-acceptance and your relationship with yourself and how that can end up benefiting you in how you interface with the world and the public image and reputation that you have in general. So I'm rooting for you, my Taurus friends. That's my reading for you. And I will see you at the end for the journal prompts. Hello to my Gemini friends. So this Aquarius solar eclipse and new moon will be happening in your 9th house of philosophy, higher learning, long distance travel, deep research, and what else? Oh, religion and your spiritual belief systems, and even political or even philosophical belief systems. And I say that because the 9th house is about all things expansion and learning. And long distance travel can often be tied to us expanding our own worlds and our understanding of the world. And so with that said, you might experience a few days leading up to or following this lunation, and also over the next 6 months, a shift when it comes to social circle dynamics that end up pushing you to evolve your perspective when it comes to your personal philosophy, maybe even your own education path, your spiritual beliefs, or even your political views. You might have, you know what comes to mind is that quote, the highest form of intelligence is our ability to, basically accept that we're wrong sometimes, and our ability to basically take in new information, accept that we didn't know that before, that we're wrong, and actually change our behavior and our worldviews based off of the new information that we received. And I don't know about you, but I know that in the US, there's been a lot of frustration with people on varying sides of the political spectrum and things like that, where it feels like, hey, new information came out. Why isn't there new, behavior, or why isn't there a new approach or perspective with this new information. And I think that for many of you, you're going to grow up and mature and really expand your literal intelligence, because especially for you, my Geminis, I feel like a common misconception of Geminis is that we're like, I have a Gemini stellium, but I feel like a common misconception of Geminis is that they're like two-faced or, all these things that they're fake. But I think that a big core element of that for many Geminis is that we are actually really open-minded and we are ravenous for new information. And I think that you guys are very well equipped for basically the things that might play out for you in the more immediate sense in the next 10 plus days, but also over the next 6 months. And you'll see a culmination of this and a spotlight on some of the results of what's just now initiating, starting right now in 6 months under the Aquarius full moon that we'll see. So so overall, my advice for you is to stay open-minded. If you learn something new or if something new happens or changes in the world, really, the magic for you is going to be in researching and learning more. And I think that for some of you, you might even have people enter your lives or people currently in your lives that usher in experiences or conversations that end up helping you to view something from a very different perspective and expand your understanding of something that ultimately benefits you in the long term, especially when it comes to the Saturnian themes of evolving, and especially as it pertains to the Aquarius themes of your friendships and your social dynamics being at play under this eclipse. So with all of that said, that is my reading for you, and I will see you at the end for these eclipse journal prompts. Hello to my Cancer friends. This Aquarius eclipse and new moon is one that a few days leading up to the day of or following it will be one that could usher in for you, likely by way of your social dynamics or community, some potential events that could push you to evolve your relationship with things that have to do with the 8th house themes of intimacy, interdependence, codependence, things like shared resources, emotional trust, or even things that are ending for you. I think that something that could be at the forefront of your mind right now, my Cancer friends, is some type of noticeable ending or shift for you. Obviously, solar eclipses bring in a new chapter, an energetic shift. Saturn entering Aries is bringing in this new chapter for you. But in order for a new chapter to begin, something oftentimes needs to end, right? And it doesn't need to necessarily manifest as like, boom, something happens, it's ended. It can also manifest as that analogy that I gave earlier in the video of, an equinox or a solstice, signifying this steady shift from one season to another. And just as you are entering something, sometimes that means having to let go of something that we were very intimately tied to. And so around the time of this eclipse, you might have some experiences that spotlight your more intimate relationships. I think that for some of you, even contracts, because the 8th house also has to do with inheritance and other people's money. And income as well, but through other people in some way, but also intimate relationships. So I think that for some of you, there's going to be a shift with some closer relationships in your life, for better or worse. Something new could be beginning for you. But because the 8th house does have to do with endings in a lot of ways and more deeper rooted relationships and more intricate and all-encompassing contracts with other people, those are going to be the overarching themes for you. And I think that for some of you, you might have experiences that spotlight where you're being called to mature, where as it pertains to some of your more intimate long-term relationships, where there's a little bit more interdependence at play. And if not that interdependence being at play, popping up could pertain to, I think, some business agreements, some contracts. Some of you guys might be signing a contract on a new house or a new business venture with somebody else. And considering that Saturn is at play here, Aquarius as well, it'll be very important for you guys, I think, really reread all of your contracts. And I mean that in the literal sense, but also in the spiritual sense, like a lot of us have these spiritual soul tie contracts, what feels like emotional contracts, what feels like social contracts with our friendships and social dynamics, which is definitely at the forefront with Aquarius being here. And so it wouldn't hurt for you to pause and kind of question those things and ask yourself, is this working for me? How can I evolve? You also might have some experiences where people come to you and they express, hey, I'd like something to change or evolve here. And I wanted to know what you think of it. And it'll be important to be open and meet people where they're at. So I don't know, this comes to mind. Maybe somebody here needs to hear this, but I do want to say that oftentimes when other people open up to us, we oftentimes, well, for better or worse, maybe it's a comfortable conversation, an uncomfortable conversation. When people open up to us, we tend to meet them as deeply as we have met ourselves, right? And so it could also be very helpful to pause and ask yourself, how deeply have you met yourself? When you feel uncomfortable or sad, or there's a social dynamic or something going on that you clearly need to process, do you actually sit and process it? Do you maybe avoid it? How do you process it? How long do you process it? That can inform oftentimes your own capacity to hold space for other people as well. And yeah, I just want to say that because again, this Aquarius eclipse, solar eclipse and new moon will be definitely ushering in events that have to do with your more intimate long-term relationships and more all-encompassing contracts, whether they be more financial or personal. But all of that to say, I think that right now, exploring what it looks like to let go of the old, how does that make you feel? Pausing to ask yourself also, like, how have you changed? What are things that you left behind personality-wise, dynamic-wise, maybe how you interact with people, how you used to, like, what has changed for the better? What do you want to celebrate? How can you learn from that? And yeah, but that's my reading for my Cancer friends. I'll see you at the end for the journal prompts. Hello to my Leo friends. Y'all, this solar eclipse and new moon in Aquarius is all going down in your 7th house of love and relationships. The 7th house is the house of marriage. It's the house of contracts, but most notably, it's the house of relationships of the heart. They can be more romantic, but they can also be interpersonal relationships. The 7th house is also the house that really spotlights whether or not there's equitability in said relationships. The 7th house is also associated with justice, legal matters. And so I think that for some of you guys, you might literally have some more legal type of interactions that could pop up within the next 10 days. But overall, this new lunar cycle, this new eclipse is signifying a new chapter for you that will be more notably felt over the next 6 months. And you'll see a lot of the results, the end results of what's just now beginning under the Aquarius full moon that will be happening in 6 months. And all of these shifts will be tied back to your relationships. And I think that for some of you guys, you might have a challenge or change as it pertains to your social circles and your networks, that being the Aquarius energy. And through that, there will be topics that come up for you that have to do with maybe a romantic partner, maybe a collaborator, maybe a roommate. And I think that either you or somebody else in your life might bring up where there can be a little bit more balance, where there can be a little bit more equitability. And I think that there's going to be overarching themes where you're invited to mature and grow when it comes to where do you stand in your collective relationships, as well as your more interpersonal ones. Where is there equal balance? Where do you feel supported? Where do you feel inclined and excited to support others as well? And this eclipse could definitely reveal for many of you where reciprocity has been missing, or where there's a great amount of it, in which case you should definitely celebrate that if you notice that. But over the next 6 months, and also noticeably in the next few, like 10-ish days, there will be an invitation for rebuilding or structuring or doubling down on the relationships that feel balanced for you. And if they don't, there will be opportunities to bring that balance in. And I'm really excited for you. But that is my reading for you, my Leo friends. Again, check out my Saturn video to get a reading for you and how Saturn transiting Aries over the next 2.5 years will play out for you in different ways. And I will see you at the end for the eclipse journal prompts. Hello to my Virgo friends. So this eclipse and new moon in Aquarius is all going down in your 6th house of labor, your 6th house of the work that you give to others, but also the labor and work that you receive from others. And I think that you might have or notice subtle shifts and changes within your community and your social networks. And they could be things that help you to evolve your perception on how you manage your time, your health, and your work-life balance. I think that a few days leading up to the day of or following this eclipse, you might have some experiences that kind of make you pause and consider how much just the amount of energy that you are giving to your friends and to your relationships, to the people in your life, and whether or not that has been sustainable for you. I think that for some of you, especially leading up to this eclipse, you guys might have noticed a bit more of burnout or of experiences that spotlight something kind of needs to shift or change when it comes to my work or the energy that I give to others. And you might still be navigating how to actually initiate that shift or what exactly to do in order to find more balance and sustainability within those areas of life. And this eclipse is definitely one that could be spotlighting that for you. And over the next 6 months, what's good is that you will likely be able to create more sustainable dynamics and habits and approaches to things that end up helping you in the long term with more sustained energy as it pertains to the labor that you give and receive. And I think that for some of you, that might show up as finally, it's February, especially in the US Northern Hemisphere, the winter is steadily, waning. We're going into the spring season where everything is a bit more energized. The true astrological new year will be coming up. And if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, it's the summertime. Summer is steadily kind of going to be wrapping up soon. We're going to be entering the fall for you guys. But there's this energetic shift that's happening. And I think, in nature. And I think that that's being reflected back to you in how you are steadily shifting how you interface with your work. And I think that the other thing having to do with labor, it doesn't always pertain to your job, though that's like the main place where we give labor, right? It could pertain to the chores or the work that you do around your house. Who are you maybe even a caregiver to? Who do you, support in life? And there could be a bit of restructuring there. And so if you are open to maybe working on those things over the next few months or exploring how you can lighten your load, really, it's not about working. It's actually about lightening your load for many of you. Now can be a really great time to pause and reflect on, how do you feel about your current workload? How do you feel about how you show up with work and stuff? And also, anyway, sorry, I just want to wrap that up. Those are the type of things that if you focus on those right now, reflect on them, intention set, it will be very fruitful and helpful for you, not only over the next 10 days, but over the next 6 months. And you'll see a culmination point and see the results of what you might initiate right now at the Aquarius full moon in 6 months. But something that came to mind that could be relevant to some of you is a quote from SZA. She's a lovely singer that I love so much. She said in an interview once, sometimes when things don't work out, it can be really helpful to interpret them as redirection, or it can be helpful to just kind of go with the flow. So for me, the way that I took that in and interpreted it was, oh, my husband is doing things, so if you hear things, that's just him, but it's totally okay. You can make noise if you need to, Chris. But the way that I interpreted that and how this could be relevant to you with this Aquarius solar eclipse happening in your 6th house of labor and organization and your health and sustainable energy, is for me, I'm neurospicy. I don't have a normal schedule day to day, but it's through kind of going with the flow and kind of figuring out what uniquely has worked for me, that I've been able to still do work and still show up in life in a relatively sustainable way for myself. And the type of schedule that I have is not a normal one for people, but it's what works for me. And it took me time to figure that out. And I think that for some of you over the next 6 months, you're going to be figuring that out. And especially if you choose to focus on that, that's something that you will definitely notice and reap the benefits from over the next 6 months. So I'm excited for you. And that is my reading for you, my Virgo friends. With that said, I will see you at the end for sorry, I'm just making sure my mic is on. It's Bluetooth and sometimes it turns off. I will see you at the end for the journal prompts. Hello to my Libra friends. This Aquarius this Aquarius solar eclipse and new moon will be happening in your 5th house of creativity, the things that spark joy and curiosity and wonder in your life. And I like to describe the 5th house also as the house of, Just making sure my microphone is on. It's also the house of the inner child and that level of authenticity that sometimes is underneath the sort of layers that we've put over our personality and our soul psyche as we've gotten older in order to, show up in different spaces and be accepted and assimilate and all that stuff. And I think that for you guys, a few days leading up to the day of, or a few days following this eclipse, you might have a notable experience or two that spotlights the benefit for you of showing up authentically. And I think that it could show up in a few ways. For one, you might have an experience where you're showing up authentically and you notice that maybe that doesn't really gel with somebody else. And I invite you to pause and ask yourself if you even gel with them. I think that for some of you guys, you might have some experiences and lessons, especially tied to Saturn shifting signs into Aries and Aquarius having to do with the collective, that invites you to mature when it comes to your relationship with social dynamics. And I think maybe even for some of you, it could literally show up through like accepting rejection and being okay with not always vibing with everybody, and not in a rude, inconsiderate, I'm going to be loud anyway way, because we all know those type of people who are clearly being inconsiderate and not actually looking to like actually gel and co-create a cohesive dynamic with people around them, which we all need to do. We're community-based organisms, right? We all want to coexist. And sometimes that means compromise and things like that. I don't mean in that sense of being inconsiderate, but especially because this eclipse is happening in your 5th house, it's initiating a new shift, especially over the next 6 months, where you're going to be seeing the end results of things that are shifting right now. You'll see the end results under the Aquarius full moon in 6 months that involve your relationship with your authenticity and your creative spark. And I think that especially a few days around the time of this new moon, you might have some experiences where it could be through social dynamics, where on one side of the coin, you actually feel really inspired to express yourself. And it could be through literally going to some type of event or meetup or being around people who are doing certain things that leave you feeling really inspired and more open-minded and optimistic about how you can contribute or how you can maybe do something similar. And so I wouldn't shy away from social circles and dynamics around this time, because there's going to be a lot of lessons that come through for them. But this can also be a time for letting go of even like performance pressure. What comes to mind is social anxiety, or maybe you have people in your life pressuring you to do certain things that kind of take away the fun, the wonder, the joy or excitement out of something, and reclaiming your agency when it comes to those things. But ultimately, you will definitely notice some overarching themes as it pertains to creativity, expression, and things that you really love authentically. I recently did a reading and I got some comments with people who were talking about, like for the reading, it had to do with their 5th house. And they were talking about how they had recently started to get back into painting, which is something that they loved to do as a kid, but for various reasons, they just stopped doing it. And then they started back up and they realized, oh my gosh, like this is something that I just inherently find joy in doing. And so those are some of the things that come to life right now. Those are the things that come to mind and that will be illuminated through this solar eclipse and new moon. And over the course of the next 6 months, if you decide to lean into these things and explore these areas of your life, you could have a lot of noticeable growth. And namely, you could mature in a lot of ways when it comes to these things. So I'm excited for you, my Libra friends, and that's your reading. And I will see you at the end for the eclipse journal prompts. Hello to my Scorpio risings. So this annular solar eclipse and new moon in the sign of Aquarius will be happening in your 4th house of your past, the 4th house of your family roles, your emotional foundations. Think about your formative years and the people who were in your formative years, which is usually your family or even childhood friends and things like that. 4th house also has to do with your home and your private life, things that aren't always seen by everybody else. The 4th house, and essentially, especially with there being an eclipse here and it's signifying the shift and change for many of you, you might have some changes as it pertains to the people in your life or from your past. You could get some news about people in your family or people from your past in some way. Or you could have some experiences that invite you to reflect on how far you've come from your past in different ways. But in general, with this happening in your fourth house, this signifying an energetic shift, a new chapter for you, having to do with changes and potential challenges tied back to certain social circles and dynamics, something old may be asking to be released or let go for some of you so that you can finally build your sense of safety on your own terms, or maybe within new terms. I think that for some of you, in order for a new chapter to begin, sometimes a new chapter needs to end. In order for a new dynamic or paradigm to begin, something needs to be let go of or released or accepted that it's not going to be at the forefront with you anymore. And I think that for many of you, taking time around under this new moon to reflect on not only what you're looking to begin or evolve into, especially as it pertains to your family dynamics, but also your private life, things having to do within your home. It could be a move. It could be somebody moving out or moving into your home, or it could be a shift, again, with people from your past. It could be very helpful to pause, reflect, and maybe even journal about what you have grown out of from your past. What have you grown out of from when you were in high school, from when you were a kid, from just a few years ago? And what are things from your past that you're really proud of? And how can that inform this next chapter? And over the next 6 months, up until the Aquarius full moon that we'll have in 6 months, there's going to be this buildup and this momentum around some of the things that are happening or under this eclipse. So be mindful of those things. All of that to say, that is my reading for you, my Scorpio friends, and I will see you at the end for these eclipse journal prompts. Hello to my Sagittarius friends. So this solar eclipse and new moon in Aquarius will be happening in your third house of communication, information exchange, short distance travel, quick facts, and the internet. And considering that this is an eclipse that has all to do with your social circles and dynamics, Aquarius is all about our community, how we collaborate and interact and synergistically, work together, and also how we can progressively move forward together. Not by one singular idea, but how we can all kind of come together. And considering this is in your third house of communication, this is a great time for networking. Not just networking professionally, but I think that if you get invited to any sort of social things, you should definitely go and check them out, because a lot of the lessons that this Aquarius eclipse will be having will be through these social settings. And I think that you might actually notice potential changes or shifts in these dynamics that end up helping you to evolve your perspective on how you communicate to people, how you learn, and also your relationship with technology and your more immediate environment. And what comes to mind is things having to do with your neighbors, things having to do with your friends that kind of live relatively close to you, something going on at something nearby. And I think that you might have some experiences that invite you to pause and reflect on how you can mature and grow when it comes to not only the information that you take in. I think that for some of you might literally have some experiences where you pause and you kind of realize, maybe I need to get new news sources. Maybe these are a little bit biased, or it's not giving me the full picture, or maybe you might have some experiences where you realize, I've been most of the things that I've been learning or articles or news that I've been getting have been mainly through social media and not me actually sitting down to do a deeper dive to better understand what's going on. And I think that for some of you, you actually might pause to do that right now, but you might just notice an overall shift in how you think and speak. And this shift is one that ultimately will be tied back to improving how you connect with other people. And so ultimately, this Aquarius eclipse and new moon, definitely a few days leading up to the day of or following it, over the next 10 plus days, you might have some experiences where you're invited to kind of mature and grow up when it comes to how you speak to people and how other people speak to you and your boundaries and sort of standards for that. And it's going to set you on a journey over the next 6 months where through you deciding to learn and evolve, it's going to result in you being able to deepen your connections with people and ultimately have better dynamics on a social setting when it comes to networking and having conversations with people. But I definitely think for you, my Sagittarius friends, your words carry a lot of weight right now, especially with Saturn at play. Saturn being the ruling planet of Aquarius. This eclipse is happening in Aquarius. Saturn being the planet of maturation and being the strict teacher and being this sort of planet that can usher in experiences that are kind of like, hey, seems like you kind of cut corners here. Hey, it seems like you're not fully dealing with this. I'm going to create a situation or a dynamic where you're going to have to kind of finally grapple with this. But if you do decide to grapple with this, you're going to be better off and you're actually going to have more sustainable, deeper connections in your life. So that's my reading for you, my Sagittarius friends. I will see you at the end for the journal prompts. And yeah. Hello to my Capricorn friends. So this solar eclipse and new moon in Aquarius will be happening in your second house of money, of your values, of your job, of your income. Why did I say money like that? Money. The second house isn't just about money. Really, at its core, from a Hellenistic astrology, traditional astrology perspective, like historically, the second house has been mainly associated with the means you need in order to live your life. So, maybe you have this career or you have this, you're like, I'm a painter, I'm a singer, I'm a this, I'm a that. What are like the tangible things that you need in order to be that person, in order to live that life? So think about like physical possessions. Like in order to be a painter, you need a brush. In order to get to your job, maybe you need a car. All of those things in this world. And, as of 2026, they require money, right? And so money and income and the resources that you need in order to live your life are essentially at the forefront under this Aquarius eclipse. And so for, I think many of you, you might have some sort of social experiences or conversations or events that end up spotlighting for you, especially over the next 10 days under this eclipse, that kind of spotlight for you your value systems, also your relationship with finances, even financial literacy, and also how you invest your energy. And for some of you, that also could show up as your value systems in terms of your own self-love. Like, how do you love and value your own self? What do you predicate your self-worth on? For some people, that is money. That is material things, partially. For some people, that's solely it. For some people, and I think that for you guys, you might be entering, for a lot of you guys, you're going to be entering a 6-month cycle that will end in 6 months under the Aquarius full moon, where you see kind of like the end results of things that are initiated now and done over the next 6 months, where your relationship with your finances, but also your self-worth is evolving, where I think that this eclipse is indicating you might have some experiences that set you on a trajectory where you're reworking a little bit how you define comfort, how you define stability financially, how you define a grounded sense of self and self-worth as well. And so it'll be helpful for you to notice what maybe you might be clinging to out of fear, with a new moon and a new cycle that's happening under this eclipse. Something old kind of needs to be let go of or released, right? And you can also consider, what would it feel like, what in general, what does stability long-term look like for you when it comes to your relationships, when it comes to consistently feeling valuable and loved, not only by other people, but also by yourself, and fortifying that sense of self. The second house is all about these things. And so I think that, especially with Saturn being at play here, there's an invitation to mature and kind of grow up and take responsibility when it comes to these things in your life. And so under this eclipse, especially over the next 10 plus days, it can be really helpful to pause and ask yourself, how can you create more sustainability within these areas of your life? And how have you in the past, maybe? How can you continue to do that as well? But that's my reading for you, my Capricorn friends. I will see you at the end for the journal prompts, and that is it. Hello, hello to my stars of the show, my Aquariuses. So this annular solar eclipse and new moon at 28 degrees in Aquarius is happening in your first house. The first house is all about the things that you initiate, the things that you begin. This is a notable new chapter for you, my Aquarius friends. But on top of that, the first house has to do with your body, your actual physical health, your physical image, and also how other people see you literally and how you see yourself figuratively. your self-image. And I think that over the next 10 plus days under this eclipse, you might have some notable experiences that are tied to social interactions, that Aquarius aspect of things, that end up inviting you to pause and reflect on how you can maybe grow up or evolve or step into a new chapter when it comes to your literal self-image, your identity. People who are kind of like, I'm going to reinvent myself and like really make that a thing. And we're like, I'm doing everything differently, or like, I'm going to embody my alter ego, or like, I'm going to step into like, you know what? I'm runner Alina now. I'm not just someone who runs, I'm a runner. I identify as that. What does that mean for me? You know, like getting into that Delulu sort of area and utilizing that to kind of envision how you want to grow literally as a person is all very energetically supported for you right now. But I will say that it could potentially come through potential challenges or a bit of pressure, likely through some type of social interaction that ends up resulting in these things. But ultimately, this is your eclipse. It's about choosing a way of a new way of showing up. I'm reading my notes here. And even if others don't fully recognize who you're becoming yet, what does it look like for you to show up anyway? I'm sorry, I have like, it's like way too bright right now. So I'm going to lower the brightness as we talk. I feel like that didn't do anything. Okay, well, I'm doing my best. It just seems like it's a little bit too bright in the video. But anyway, that is my reading for you guys, my Aquarius friends. It's all about you, man. If there's anything you want to start right now, initiate. Now's a great time to do it. And I definitely suggest checking out my other video on Saturn entering Aries and what it uniquely means for you, because you are Saturn ruled. So you're going to be feeling that a little bit more notably. But I will see you at the end for the journal prompts, and I'm sending my love. Hello, hello to my Pisces friends. Ooh, this eclipse will be interesting for us. I say us because I'm an Aquarius rising as well. In that, okay, so this eclipse, annular eclipse happening at 28 degrees in Aquarius. It's a new moon signifying a new beginning, but also ushering in a likely pretty tangible, notable experiences over the next 10 plus days. It's all about hidden matters. So I think that actually for some of you guys, it's going to be interesting in that we actually might have some revelations that come up when it comes to literally people or secrets that have been hidden from us being revealed, or on an external sense, or on an internal sense, subconscious influences, subconscious deeper rooted belief systems and perspectives and conditioning coming to the forefront of our awareness and our conscious mind, and us having the opportunity, because these things are being brought up, us having the opportunity to grapple with those things and maybe potentially rework them in some way to be in alignment with the direction that we want to go in our life. So over the next 6 months, there's going to be overarching themes for us where we are, especially starting right now and over the next 10 days, there's going to be a new journey starting for us starting for us that could involve solitude, our mental health, our spiritual connections, and again, things that have been hidden, and our relationship with those things. And I think that especially over the next 10 days, we might have some experiences that are through social dynamics, that Aquarius collectivist overarching theme, where we're invited to get real with ourselves on like a very deep and intimate level. The 12th house is a house of endings. It's a house of disillusionment, but also illusion and imagination. And again, secrets, things that are illusory to us that maybe we don't fully have a tangible sense of understanding of just yet. And this is definitely a new moon that is going to usher in for us a time of closure where we're kind of wrapping up something, or we are finally coming to terms with a shifting of something, a change of something, and we're able to find closure and better understanding and grapple with those things. Something behind the scenes for all of us, because again, this is happening in the 12th house, could be shifting for many of us. And it could be noticeable in a tangible way over the next 10 plus days. It could be through social dynamics again. But ultimately, especially with Saturn being tied into this eclipse, the things that could seem illusory or subconscious or hidden could come to light in some way or be spotlighted. And initially, it might feel confusing, but the thing about this 6-month period, and also the thing about Aquarius and Saturn, is that it's all about a steady shift. It's all about the slow unveiling of things for us. And it'll be helpful for us to stay open-minded to those things. What comes to mind when it comes to illusory, subconscious things is that for many of us, on one side of the more like positive, constructive spectrum, there are certain things in our life that on a deep subconscious level, we have these beliefs about the world that things are just naturally going to work out for me. Or like you might have a certain mindset of like, I'm an inherently creative person. Like you have that, might have that deeper knowing within you, or you might have a deeper knowing within you of like, you know what, I am just naturally a driven person, or I am just a naturally like resourceful person, or something like that, right? And that could be very constructive, that aspect of something that you on a deeper subconscious level believe about yourself. But there's another aspect, another side of the spectrum where you might have some limiting beliefs that could be so strong that over the next 6 months, or even under this eclipse, you might have spotlighted where you might have even self-sabotaged to stay within that familiarity and to maintain your own belief systems. And that's just like something in our human nature. It's like, for better or worse, oftentimes we just stick with whatever is familiar to us. And over the next 6 months, we might have some experiences that spotlight on one side of the spectrum where we could be called to mature and grow, to kind of grow out of those limiting beliefs and to prevent any sort of self-sabotage and actually step out of our comfort zone consciously and subconsciously and step into actions and experiences that maybe on a deeper level we didn't fully realize were possible for us. But the way in order for us to step outside of that and grow, it's important for us to do things and have experiences and witness other people even doing things that are different or outside of our comfort zone to help it be normalized in our own lives. What comes to mind is that there's so many highly successful people that came up around other highly successful people. A good example is Odd Future. Odd Future was a collective of rappers, R&B, hip hop artists that all came up together over 10 years ago. And they included the musical groups The Internet, but also Tyler, the Creator, Steve Lacy. And these are people who worked together and undoubtedly were inspired by one another. Maybe even in like an egotistical way of like wanting to one up on one another. But either way, there were people within that group that maybe were way more inspired than the other person. But because the other person who wasn't as inspired was just around them, they were able to see, oh my gosh, that's possible. Wow, there's so much overexposure in this recording, and I don't know how to lower it. Let me see. Does this, oh, that makes it worse. Okay, there we go. Oh my gosh, it was just a little too bright before. Okay, sorry, I just had to pause to do that. It was gonna bother me. But I think that for many of you, especially with Saturn at play, this has to do with maturing and growing up in some way. You might have some experiences that really push you to get outside of your comfort zone and to challenge and explore what consciously and subconsciously is going on. But again, the 12th house, okay, so that's just one aspect of it. I just want to bring that up. I think it might be relevant to some people, so I just wanted to like say that. But the other aspect of having an eclipse, this new start in Aquarius in your 12th house, is that it could be through your social circles and dynamics that you actually might be able to work on your own mental health and improve your mental health through being in community, maybe even through volunteering, through actually asking for help, and maybe that's outside of your comfort zone, or even deepening your spiritual connections. But also over the next 6 months, I have a lisp and sometimes I go month, but over the next 6 months, you also might be on a spiritual journey. The 12th house also has to do with your spirituality. And I think that you'll find a lot of strength and a lot of resources and a lot of inspiration through your communities at a time like this. So don't hesitate to join a club. Maybe it's a support group, or just people who are on similar journeys or have similar interests from you, because you never know we're all mirrors, right? You never know what might end up being reflected back to you through the other people that you're around. And sometimes that could reflect back to you something that was deep within you that you forgot about, or that wasn't as like, you weren't as aware of, that could actually help you in your healing and growing journey. So, that was kind of all over the place, but that is my reading for you, my Aquarius friends. You will see the sort of culmination of this in a more tangible way of like the fruits of your labor and the results of this in 6 months under the Aquarius full moon. But I will see you at the end right now for the journal prompts. All right, y'all, let's go ahead and do these Aquarius solar eclipse and new moon journal prompts. If you have your R-Line astrology planner, either the digital one, which is currently on sale right now, or the physical one, or if you just have a notebook, you can go ahead and flip on over to the dedicated Aquarius eclipse page to write these out. The first prompt is, where in your life have you been invited to release control and trust community or other people around you for support? And this can be more recent or maybe a memory. What does it look like for you to honor your uniqueness while also being in community and contributing to something greater than yourself? And finally, under this eclipse and new moon, is there anything that comes to mind that you're ready to initiate or start or begin? Maybe it's a new intention, a new habit, a new routine, a new class that you want to take, or anything like that. Does anything come to mind? All right, y'all, that concludes this video. I want to say that if you made it to the end, I'd love if you commented 3 Aquarius emojis or 3 Saturn emojis to let me know that you made it to the end. Also, please check out my last video where it's an all signs horoscope for Saturn entering Aries over the next 2.5 years and what that means uniquely for you. I did a whole rundown on Saturn returns in Aries if you're having your Saturn return, and also Pisces Saturn return is kind of like a retrospective, what the heck happened. But even if you don't have your Saturn in Pisces or Aries, in general, we're all experiencing this shift, and it'll help to paint an overarching picture of what's going on right now in the world. But that is basically it. Oh, also check out the R-Line astrology digital wall calendars that auto-populate into your wall calendar. You can get one custom to your rising sign so that you get notifications in your calendar whenever any of the top trends of the year happen, and a little write-up of what it uniquely means for you, like what area of life it'll show up for in your life. So check that out. Also check out the Align newsletter if you want these videos emailed directly to you just a day or two before every single lunation. And that's it, you guys. Okay, I'll see you in the next one. I love you so much, and I really appreciate your support and your encouraging comments. I read a lot of them in the last one, and I enjoyed them. Okay, bye.